Glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kudash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. And Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is Shabai from GMS Denver. And I'm going to read 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. Just going in on some history. And basically this is going into, King Hosea. It says Hoshea in this, but it's referring to the King Hosea, also called Osea. So there's a few different variations that you can read. Hoshea, Hosea, Osea in the scriptures. So anyway, let's go start at the top. It says, in the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. Okay. And Samaria represents the place where the northern kingdom was dwelling. Okay. Hosea was a northern kingdom king, okay, of Israel. Okay. And remember, after the split, you had, the kings, Solomon died, and then you had the split. And so this is later on after the split when there was two kingdoms. All right. You had southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Then you had northern kingdom, which were considered with all the 10 tribes, starting from Ephraim, so-called Puerto Ricans, all the way down to Issachar, which was the northern kingdom. And Hosea was the king. Okay. It says, verse 2, and he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hosea became his servant and gave him presents. Okay. So, this is a time in history of Israel where, we were under the Assyrians. And if you know the history, you know that during the time of the Assyrian captivity, that's why, we took that, and I say we because I believe I'm of the northern kingdom, but we left, the Assyrian captivity. That's why during the Babylonian captivity, you had the southern kingdom. Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were in the Babylonian captivity. But this is, let's keep reading. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hosea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Okay. So another reason why, the Israelites, which was the northern kingdom, would eventually make that decision to come to the Americas. You see the oppression. They took the king Hosea and put him in prison. But remember, everything's of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. And we read that he was doing evil in the sight of Yahweh. So, he was paying for it. And one of the forms of him paying for it was what we're reading right here. King Hosea getting bound up and put in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. Okay. And remember, I want to stress the fact that Samaria, it deals with, this is the place where the northern kingdom was dwelling. And Samaria is synonymous with the northern kingdom. All right. In the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took Samaria. He carried away Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. Okay? So this is the northern kingdom going into slavery under the Assyrian captivity. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against Yahweh, their power, which had brought them out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods. And the northern kingdom is synonymous with idolatry, all right? Worshipping other gods. I mean, all the tribes, of course, are, guilty of idolatry, but, idolatry was always heavy in the northern kingdom, right? The northern kingdom, Israel. Verse 8, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom Yahweh cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against Yahweh their power, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city, right? So the northern kingdom, again, going off, worshiping false idols, all right? Idolatry has always been a heavy thing with the northern kingdom, Verse 10, and they set them up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. Basically, whenever you see that, under every green tree, pretty much means everywhere they dwelt. Because everywhere, there's going to be green trees. So basically, that's like saying everywhere under the sun, our people were worshiping false gods, false idols. And there they burn incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom Yahweh carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke Yahweh to anger. Right, you Israelites, when you're worshiping other gods, other false idols, when you're worshiping false idols, the Most High Yahweh Bashem Yoshai hates that thing. All right. For they served idols, whereof Yahweh had said unto them, ye shall not do this thing. Unto this day our people still doing it. Yet Yahweh testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Right? And so the Most High, he does this repetitively in history. He's constantly setting up his prophets to, bring order to the nation of Israel, both northern and southern kingdom. And that's what he's doing right now. You have the Israelites who are going to listen to his mouth, his servants, the prophets. And they're going to come in a spirit of repentance. And you have the majority of the Israelites who are going to dismiss the Lord's prophets, just like they have in times past. And they're going to be severely punished, just like they have been punished in times past. Okay? Verse 14, notwithstanding they would not hear, but hardened their necks like to the neck of their fathers, and did not believe in Yahweh their power. And you have that also today. Our people, they don't believe in Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. Right? They come across the prophets, they reject the names, they reject the every aspect of the truth, And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them, and they followed vanity. That's what our people follow, vanity. That word vanity means useless things. Like you have, women, men, like, following gods that can't save them. Okay? Like Cracker Jesus, he's not going to save nobody. That's a Renaissance idol created during the time of the Renaissance. That's not a true God or a true power that's going to bring salvation, like our people, the wicked of our people wholeheartedly believe that they're going to be saved by a so-called white man named Jesus. Right? That's vain. That's a vain thing, meaning it's useless. There's no profit in worshiping Cracker Jesus. And I use him as the example, because the majority of our people are following that wicked thing. Okay? And went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom Yahweh had charged them, that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of Yahweh, their power, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. Right? And you got to understand, not only when during the time of Moses, when he went up to Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, to get the laws from Yahweh, right? They did that with the two golden calves, but they also did that during the time of the split. You had the northern kingdom; they set up idols in the land of Dan, in where there was another area. There's 2 golden calves that were set up by the northern kingdom. Let me look it up real quick. Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so cool. It came up right away. So it says, where were the 2 golden calves located? And one was in Bethel and in Dan. Okay, the other one was in Dan, the region. So they were set up by Jeroboam, who was the first king of the northern kingdom. Matter of fact, I just found out Jeroboam, he obviously was the first king of the northern kingdom. Hosea was the last king of Israel of the northern kingdom. So it was from Jeroboam all the way to Hosea, and the northern kingdom was worshiping they were worshiping the golden calves, both in Bethel and in Dan. One was on the northern side of the place where they dwelt, and the other one was on the southern part of the place where they dwelt. And it was set up because Jeroboam didn't want the northern kingdom Israelites to go to Jerusalem. He didn't want them to go and worship in Jerusalem, where we had previously worshipped, because he was afraid that they would, basically turn against him, and he was afraid that the northern kingdom would go and rejoin the southern kingdom Israelites, who was, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and collectively called Judah, right? So that's why he set up those 2 golden calves, because he didn't want them. He had fear that they would turn against him and go back to Jerusalem and worship and be a part of and become his enemy. Because you have to understand, they were beefing, the northern and southern kingdom Israelites. Okay, so verse 17. And they caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of Yahweh, to provoke him to anger. Therefore Yahweh was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. And Judah kept not the commandments of Yahweh their power, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they had made. And Yahweh rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. So at this point, you had all the tribes just going off, okay? And then it's just gotten worse and worse and worse with all the generations that have passed, to the point now you look at the state of Israel. All right, and now we're in the last days, and you have the elect are coming back into remembrance of who we are. We're coming back into the remembrance of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, right? We know the names. We're also coming back into remembrance of the laws, statutes, and commandments. We're trying, the elect who are sincere are keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments to the best of our ability. So we're coming back into the fold of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. But, then going back on this history, you can see as we're reading that our people have, consistently been worshipers of idols instead of the Most High Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Verse 21, for he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drave Israel from the following. Yahweh had made them sin a great sin. Right, and Jeroboam, remember, he was the first king of the northern kingdom, a first king of Israel, not Judah, but of Israel. Okay, the northern kingdom. Until Yahweh removed Israel out of his sight, he had said by all his servants the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. And the king of Syria brought men from Babylon and from Cutha and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. So basically all the heathen were being rounded up and brought into the cities of Samaria. Okay? So they were basically integrating with, that was where the northern kingdom was dwelling. But then the time of the Assyrian captivity, you had the Assyrians who were bringing all these foreigners and these strangers into the cities of, Samaria, okay? So you had a bunch of heathen living in Samaria, okay? And this was happening in the Assyrian captivity. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not Yahweh. Therefore Yahweh sent lions among them, which slew some of them. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the Most High of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of Yahweh of the land. Right? So, they were pleading with Salmanessar, the king of Assyria, saying, man, look at all these lions are eating these people up because they don't know the laws. Right? Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, carry thither one of the priests whom ye brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let them teach them the manner of the Most High of the land. So he was like, his solution was, okay, well, go send some priests, Israelite priests, to go teach these heathen, to go teach these heathen the laws and statutes of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, because of what the report he had that the lions were eating the people. And it was the Lord, we read it, the Lord sent those lions because they were being wicked. And they were, foreigners in Samaria, which it's already bad enough that the kingdom of Israel was split between the northern and southern kingdom. Now to top it off, you have heathen nations, heathen strangers, heathen foreigners living in our dwelling places, which was Samaria. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear Yahweh. Howbeit every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their cities wherein they dwelt. Right? So you could see it was just a shit show. It was a mess. You had all these heathen. They were worshiping their gods. It was already bad enough, that the northern and southern kingdom had split up, and then, they had those calves, which was in Bethel and in Dan, And now you had to top off the idolatry of those golden calves. Now you had all the heathen and their false idols. So it was just a shit show, like I said. It said in verse 30, and the men of Babylon made Sakath Benath, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima, and Sakath Benath, Nergal, Ashima. These are all false idols, false gods. And the Avites made Nibaz and Tartak, another more false gods. And the Sepharvites burnt their children in fire to Adramelech. Really, that's going into Molech. And Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. You see? So there was just all kinds of heathen gods being worshipped in the land of Samaria, where the northern kingdom had previously dwelt. So they feared Yahweh and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed them in the houses of high places. They feared Yahweh and served their own gods, after the manner of the nations whom they carried away from thence. Unto this day they do after the former manners. They fear not Yahweh, neither do they after their statutes, or after their ordinances, or after the law and commandment which Yahweh commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel. Right? So you could see it was just chaos. And they were allowed, it was like Babylon, America, where you can worship any god, any idol, That's what this place offers, freedom of religion. That's basically what Samaria turned into. Turned into a place of abominations. It says, with whom Yahweh had made a covenant and charged them, saying, ye shall not fear other gods, or bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. But Yahweh, you got to remember, Israel, even though we were being carried away into Assyria, there's so many of us, you still had Israelites in Samaria who were mingling themselves with the heathen, right? Matter of fact, it tells you in Hosea that our people mingled among the heathen, right? Let's get that real quick. I think it's Hosea 7 and 8, maybe. Yep. It says, Ephraim, he hath mixed himself. And remember, Ephraim also represents, and look, we're in Hosea 7 and 8. So that shows you Ephraim is the head tribe of the northern kingdom. But it says, Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. Strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yet gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth it not. Okay? And why were the strangers devouring his strength? Because they were in his dwelling. They were in Samaria. Okay? And it was Assyria who basically did that to Samaria. They brought all the heathen and just mingled them. And that's why you had Ephraim, the northern kingdom, mixing themselves with the heathen and, becoming a cake not turned. Some were dark skinned, some were light skinned. It's a metaphor. But, and the strangers have devoured his strength. That's what we're reading in Kings, because our strength is our power, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. But once, the Assyrians, they brought all those heathen into the dwelling places of Samaria and watered it down and made it an abominable place with all these different gods and idols that they were worshiping. All right. So this is ultimately what caused our people, the Israelites, the northern kingdom, to say, you know what, fuck this. We want another way, which I'm going to bring that out here in a little. Let me read this, and then I'll read the rest of how basically they made the decision to leave the land altogether. Okay. It says in verse 35, with whom the Yahweh had made a covenant and charged them, saying, you shall not fear other gods, nor bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. Right. And that was the covenant. Israelites were never supposed to serve other gods. All right. But Second Kings, we're reading about Hosea in the northern kingdom. So the northern kingdom was like, yo, this is fucked up, you know. But Yahweh, who hath brought you out of the land of Egypt with great power and stretched out arm, he shall ye fear, and him shall ye worship, and to him shall ye do sacrifice. And the statutes and the ordinances of the law and the commandment which he wrote for you, ye shall observe to do forevermore. Ye shall not fear other gods. Okay, those are commandments. As an Israelite, we are not supposed to worship other gods. It's plain and simple. Okay, you 2/3 out here in Babylon, America, you just think it's okay. You think there's no harm, no foul worshiping other gods outside of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and you're going to find out the hard way that was never okay. Okay. Verse 38, and the covenant that I have made with you ye shall not forget, neither shall ye fear other gods, but Yahweh your power ye shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the hand of all your enemies. Howbeit they did not hearken, but they did after their former manner. So these nations feared Yahweh and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers, so do they unto this day. And it goes all the way to now. All right. And you have our people mingled with these people and, you know, corrupting. You know, anytime Israel mingles with the heathen, you're going to have a corrupt seed, okay? Because if you're mingling with, like, just for instance, America, Babylon, this is a place of abominations. And this is why our people are so wicked and so unrighteous, because they've mingled with the heathen. They're dealing with the gods of the heathen. They're worshiping the gods of the heathen. They're setting up idols, setting up, you know, tabernacles, churches to the heathen. And we were never supposed to do any of that. But this is the account, 2nd Ezra 13. And let me see where I could start. 13 and 40. Because this is the time of Hosea, we'll read it. Those are the 2nd Ezra 13 and 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea, which remember is Hosea, and Hosea here in Esdras, the king, whom Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. Remember, they were mixing with the heathen. And then when Samaria was polluted with all those heathen, the northern kingdom was like, we got to get the hell out of here. Okay? So why did our people come to the Americas? It's because of persecution, oppression, mixing with the heathen. You know, the heathen was polluting that land greatly of Samaria. And it was all, you know, at the end of the day, it's all Yahweh. You know, he was like, he had to put that heat on the northern kingdom, so where they would finally make a decision like, yo, we need to get the hell out of even Samaria, because there was already a split between the northern and southern kingdom. And then it became where Samaria was polluted with, you know, heathen, because the Assyrians were dumping the heathen into the cities in Samaria. Okay? But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, the ones we just read about, and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. Okay, so if you look at a map, you know, you see the Euphrates. Basically, they went, this is the route that they took, was all, you know, a long ass journey all the way around what they call Africa, and then back around towards the Atlantic Ocean, and they sailed west to the Americas. And really they started out in South America, where Brazil today, modern day Brazil, Argentina, you know, Colombia, South America, right? So that's why we know the Israelites in those, that's why we know Brazilians, Argentinians, Colombians, let me see. Let me pull up a map real quick. Let's see. So you had, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia. These are all Israelites, and I'm about to read it, but we had inhabited the Americas, right? And we went all the way around the continent of Africa, so-called Africa, through the, starting out through Euphrates, right? And all the way around South Africa, went across the South Atlantic Ocean, made it to the South America, and dwelled in South America, and then, obviously made our way to the North America, right? That's why the Gadites and the Reubenites, the so-called Indians, they were all from the Northern Kingdom, but made that journey during the time of the Assyrian captivity, which, we were fleeing persecution. We were sick of the heathen. The Northern Kingdom was trying to remove themselves from the heathen. And not only that, like I say, Samaria, which was where the Northern Kingdom was dwelling after the split, when the Assyrians took over, they were dumping those heathen in there, and Israel was like, fuck this, But they did mix with the heathen also, right? Like we read in Hosea 7 and 8. But it says right here, so let me read it. For those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, so they came into another land. But they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. Remember, because we were going off in Samaria. Okay? And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. And those signs were the chariots. The chariots led the Northern Kingdom to the Americas. It was all divine. It was all a, divine journey, if you will. And it even says here the ocean, the South Atlantic Ocean, the waters were kept still as we passed, to the Americas from the eastern part of the world, right? Let me read that again. For the Most High then showed signs for them, the chariots were their guides, and held still the flood. Okay, held still, and until they were passed over. So the South Atlantic Ocean, the Lord made it still, where it wasn't, it was just still water, and they were able to journey. And let's read it. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the name in the same region is called Arsareth. Okay. So it took us a year and a half to go all the way through the Euphrates, all the way around South Africa, then all the way across the South Atlantic Ocean. But again, the Most High had made the waters calm and still so that we could make it to the Americas. Okay, which Arsareth, that's the Bible it calls it Arsareth, but it's speaking of the Americas. All right, and I forget. Let me see if I can get the. Okay. So when you go into that word Arsareth, it says the land to which the 10 tribes were deported is what it says on the internet. Let's see. And it says here, Arsareth in the Jewish Encyclopedia, it says the name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses. Right? So our people left the eastern side of the world. The northern kingdom left the eastern side of the world to come to the land of Arsareth, which means the land beyond the great river. And that great river was actually the Atlantic Ocean. It's not a river. But that's what it is, man. And the reason our people, the northern kingdom, came to the Americas was to observe the laws of Moses, right? Remember we read it, to keep the verse 42, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land, right? And then when they got to the Americas, that's a whole nother story, because our people started doing all kinds of wickedness. They kept doing the customs of the heathen, i.e., building pyramids, right? And all the other stuff that the northern kingdom did when they got to the Americas. That's why ultimately they were. It was all ordained by Yahweh Bashem Yoshai that you had the Europeans who would make that journey centuries later and put them into subjection, and we're still in subjection under these Europeans, aka Edomites, unto this day. So that's it. I hope the lesson was edifying, but I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akiam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect.